Hello there, everybody. Welcome back to another issue of Rambling Bros. I know it's been a while since the last one, which was November, I think, at this point. I'm once again Josie Cat 79, aka Chris, joined by my buddy Dark Neon, aka Derek.
Hey, what's up there, true believers?
And as you can probably no doubt hear, we're actually recording with improved equipment than the last time. No more using just the little webcams. Mike, we're actually using headphones with mics, gaming headphones, so to speak. But hopefully that'll give us better sound quality, eh?
Yep, no more shoddy phone for me. This is legit headphones. The only downside is my I'm talking and my voice to me is sounding muffled, so bear with me as I get used to this. But we tested it before and it sounded pretty good. I just have to deal with the fact that I'm hearing my voice muffled, like as I said, but Jonesy is like clear as a whistle through my headset. So
That's good. That's good. So next thing we gotta do is get studio mics. Anyway, so we're back here, and you can probably guess by the intro and the thing. We're here to talk about a rather popular genre that's been making rounds for what feels like a long time now, and many people have said it'll probably die down soon, but it's only gotten stronger. And what would that be?
that would be the Cowboys, right? Oh wait, no, that died out in the 80s. Uh, Ninjas, spacemen.
Ninjas? Pirates? No way. That yeah.
Now that was early 2000s. Oh right, it's the superheroes.
So yes, the superhero genre, which if you've been alive over the last quarter of a century, you will probably feel like they're now more prevalent than they ever were back then. Starting from humble beginnings as serials that would come before real movies, like the Superman and Batman stuff way back in the 30s, to
or even
cartoons
up
to
or even up to now with movies that have started jettisoned universal projects like Iron Man or even uh, attempts at it with the Amazing Spider-Man.
yeah, so yeah, the hero genre is definitely a lush and vibrant one. In a sort of weird way, it is considered by some to be a modern mythology, like the heroes of old, like Hercules and Theseus and Perseus.
Odysseus. A lot of yeses.
that coincidentally, I think that movie right there is also pretty much a prototypical hero film without being a superhero film.
Honestly, it was honestly Hercules was pretty much Disney telling Superman without the whole alien thing.
Yep. But yeah, so no doubt everybody knows what a superhero is. You say, what's a superhero? Well, that's probably a person with super abilities, extraordinary abilities, able to, help people. That's the basic gist of it, if you want to simplify it, right?
There's more to it. They're beings with incredible skill, talents, amazing powers that exceed the minds of the ordinary person, and they're able to use these talents not for their own personal gain, because those are the bad guys. Now these would be able to use them for like positive influences, like either stopping catastrophic events, disasters, saving people from burning buildings, or even like the simplest act of appearing for a school outing or saving a cat from a tree. It's all down to the fact that you're able to make a positive change for the people of the public knowns.
Yeah, so because yeah, the hero goes the extra mile. Superhero goes the extra mile because a hero could be anybody. That could be that could be the person who helped an old lady cross the street, or that could be somebody who was able to rescue a cat from a burning building and all that stuff. And a superhero is more like a that amplified, that hyped up. That's like,
Amplified
oh,
with the inclusion of sturdy spandex or capes.
and yeah, so the reason we're talking about superheroes is because the last time we put this together, I figured this would be a 1-2 effort. And like I would come up with topics, he would come up with topics. Last time I decided to make the topic about Godzilla being one of my childhood staples is, kaiju films. And I thought we'd make a whole thing about that. So I decided to give him the opportunity to pick the next topic, and he was pondering his brain until he settled on this.
And the reason being is I'm literally in the midst of, well, at the time when I was deciding it, I was in the midst of writing the first 6 chapters of my own original idea of a superhero, which is Dark Neon. Yes, it's the same as my name without the, but yeah, at the time of this recording now, I am actually planning out the next 6 episodes. So it's kind of like like you know how modern day comic book writers write out 6 stories for the trades, essentially. So these are the next trades that will lead to the mid-season hiatus, and then it'll be the next and the next, so on.
Yeah, so yeah, that's when I first met him. Was one of his passion projects was his original creation that dates back to high school, and I actually kind of grew enamored with the idea. And before I would snide comments about how, oh, it's a derivative of this and that, but in the end, I ended up kind of helping him shepherd things along at times, and it's all him. But I was like one of the guys who would try to cheerlead as much of his stuff as possible back then.
Yeah, but enough about me right now. Let's actually talk about like superheroes everyone's known and heard of. We'll save the good stuff for last.
All right. So obviously, when you talk to a person, picture a superhero. What's usually the first one that comes to mind? You think?
Superman.
Hopefully, that's what we would hope.
I'm sorry. I'm talking about the modern day people. Oh, it's Batman, obviously.
Yeah. So Superman is probably he may not be the one that originated the tropes, but I mean, like for everything, but he is definitely the shining example of the modern superhero because, at the time you had your comics that were pulp fiction of like alien invasions and, mob thrillers. Comics were a lot of stuff. And then in the midst of the Great Depression, these two creators come around with this concept that was initially supposed to be this menacing alien, and they thought the other way of, well, what if this guy was here to help us? So Superman was born.
Yes. So, yeah, obviously before Superman came, we had pulp heroes, and many would argue that those should count as superheroes, and in some respects they do, like the Shadow or the Phantom or the like. But Superman, when he came around, he actually really made a big splash because he was the first to have like incredible super strength. Bullets wouldn't stop this guy. He could actually see through walls. He could do all these things. He could leap incredible bounds. Couldn't fly yet. That wasn't until they were making radio dramas of Superman, which actually invented the notion that maybe he could go a step further from leaping. Maybe he could actually fly.
Oh yeah, and of course, some of this will be common knowledge to all the comic book nerds who've been reading this stuff in the back and putting to sleep. But if you're someone who wants to know more, we highly recommend you seek out the Look Up in the Sky documentary about Superman, which talks about his origins all the way to the movie at the time, Superman Returns, and it is a great documentary.
Yes. It is a little bit behind. It was made to kind of be a hype piece for Superman Returns, so you might miss out on like anyone talking about like the Superman animated movies or even Man of Steel or the like, but it's still a pretty fruitful piece, especially since a lot of people that were interviewed that had Superman attachments have passed away at this point. So like a lot of the classic Adventures of Superman actors are gone. Margot Kidder is gone. Almost most of the Superman movie cast are gone. Essentially, that's actually kind of disheartening when you think about it.
Yeah, but definitely check it out. And we're kind of just re-elaborating like Superman's endurance. This is a guy who's been around for 80 plus years at this point.
Yes, at the time of this recording, another big influential superhero is having her 80th anniversary this year. Wonder Woman, pretty much the first female superhero that you could actually like date, pretty much.
Oh yeah, because as we all know that for a long time a lot of stuff was very male centric, and it took the suffragette movement in those times and the modern feminism at the time to like try to come forward with stuff like equal rights, equal pay, that kind of stuff. And Wonder Woman was kind of the first heroine to like breach that and become like not only a symbol for that movement, but everyone looked up to Wonder Woman. And even though she did have some rather questionable things happen to her all the time, mostly involving bondage due to the psychology of the person who created her, because he's a psychologist and he found like a connection between bondage and this and that with empowering and depowering. So it's a lot of those early Wonder Woman stuff you probably turn your head at, but for the most part, she also comes from the same house that Superman and Batman come from, Detective Comics, which became the shorthand for DC, even though Superman came in Action Comics. But the point is, uh, some of the oldest heroes we have running around today come back from those periods in the 30s and the 40s.
Right, exactly. So it's, uh, I honestly feel like DC helps spearhead the superhero movement, and then up to a point, then Marvel would come into play because of, well, not really. The funny thing is, Marvel actually came out with like some really oddball superheroes you wouldn't think of back in the day. It's like, I think one of the first ones was like Namor the Submariner, Human Torch. No, not that one. The robot one.
Yeah.
And even Captain America, because Marvel Comics came at the time when World War II was kind of a thing. So
Yeah, and at the time, in order to galvanize public support for the war, they would commonly use popular characters in wartime propaganda to try to get people to support the war effort. That's why you have Daffy going to war. That's why you have Superman giving lifting up U-boats and stuff. So that was to give motivation. So Captain America, that was his entire existence, was being the guy who punches Hitler.
but yeah, especially since that iconic uh, Captain America punches Hitler comic cover. It's like that was like his debut. It's like, oh yeah, how am I gonna make a first impression? Oh yeah, I'm gonna duck Adolf Hitler in the face. Boom.
Yeah. So the great thing about Captain America is over time he began to evolve from just being a buy stamps and bonds propaganda figure and became, one of the more admirable heroes in the Marvel universe. And I think the modern day films and stuff really captured that spirit. And the thing about Captain America is that Steve Rogers was just a man, just a he was kind of scrawny, weak, asthmatic. He was not fighting material, but he had that urge to put his life on the line to do things that come naturally to like that were very heroic in a way, selfless. He was a very selfless guy, and after getting experimented on and becoming a super soldier, he never lost that core principle of right. Because sometimes we always hear in these stories, you get these people who are one way, and then once they get empowered, they suddenly first thing to do is get even and kind of like, well, I got mine, screw you. But Captain America was never that.
Right, and going back to Superman, um, now his origins in the old days were still kind of figuring it out, but basically the gist of it was that he landed on Earth and was raised to learn some principal American uh, Midwestern ethics, essentially like the good farmer rural standards and all that, mom and apple pie and all that. And
Mm-hmm.
so essentially, it was a case of like nurture versus nature, essentially, especially since he would come to learn that he is kind of a stranger on the outside, but he never changes as a person. That he only realizes like, oh wow, I can actually do like a handful of good, knowing what I am and what I could do.
Yeah, a good exploration of that is actually the entire length of the Smallville series because they go into they try to do Superman without all the super trappings. So usually in most mediums they would kind of gloss over that. It'd be like he lands on Earth, he finds out who he is, and after a while he's Superman, and then we follow him that way. In Smallville, you see him kind of going through those formative years of what am I? Okay, I know what I am now. Where did I come from? Okay, I know where I come from. So then what? And then what? And then it ends with him accepting the mantle of being this world's protector.
And he essentially gets the super suit at the end, which unfortunately I've never seen all of Smallville yet. I'm still trying to catch up. I think it's on HBO Max, so I should get on that after we record this.
Definitely. But yeah, so Superman, that's the thing about him. He's a guy who can do these incredible stuff. I mean, if he's depending on what his power scale goes all over the place, depending on what era. Like this is a guy who could sneeze and blow up universes.
Well, that was before Crisis, obviously.
Oh yeah, and all you comic book nerds know exactly what we're talking about the whole pre-crisis, post-crisis. The rest of you guys out there, I think Linkara Lewis Lovehouse said it best.
Comic
Comics are
books are
weird.
weird. Yeah,
Yes.
which actually I do have like a huge collection of like all the different crises because um, back in the day, DC Comics had like a team of superheroes. Like, if many of you would think, oh, Justice League, obviously, but no, the first superhero team ever made ever entirely was the Justice Society of America, which was a way to actually bring like just a bunch of superhero stories together in one book. But the core concept eventually evolved to say, hey, maybe at a point these heroes could actually team up to do things instead of just coming to a meeting and essentially say, shooting a breeze, saying, "Oh, what you do like the past Tuesday," uh, which that essentially that's what the first initial comics were. But eventually they do become their own team, and then later on, the Justice League get formed with Superman and Batman. But then there came the catch because Superman and Batman were members of the Justice Society as well as Justice League. So how do you explain that? Alternate dimensions, obviously. And so the crises were like these yearly events for like they would find an excuse to have like these two different teams come together to stop a huge threat. And honestly, reading them, they're actually kind of okay. They do kind of like have a lot of talking explanations of oh so is happening, so we are powerless to stop this until we actually get that aha moment. But honestly, reading them back, they're actually kind of charming, and I can actually see why people really love them.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the thing about superheroes and comic books is that the comics became a very, a good pastime for people, so they can kind of, find some fun and escapism in those small few pages,
They
and
were
they come up with.
essentially the blockbusters before blockbusters were a thing in moving pictures. So
Oh, definitely. And so the comic book forum still exists. Unfortunately, for some feel that that's the
they
big
gotta have
house.
they gotta have a big event like every I don't know every 4 weeks. Does that sound right? Definitely
Yeah, I
sounds
mean,
right for Marvel's side. DC at least has like time to actually read. It's like, okay, let's have a few stories before we do another thing. But Marvel's like, oh my god, we just had the event. Oh, here's another event. Are you kidding me? We just came back. Oh god. Okay, just give me another second wind. Ugh.
pro- property damage rates must go high in the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, so I said another thing about modern comics. So some people feel that they just become brochures and pamphlets for other media that feature this hero. Like, oh, well, we're having a movie about Ultron. Let's go ahead and have an Ultron, comic book event, even though he doesn't actually appear in that event. But I mean, it felt like they were becoming that. And luckily, some of them are riding the ship and going into, okay, let's make it about these characters. We're not promoting this and that. We're just going ahead and just make it about these people. So some places they are hit and miss, but independent comics are very much thriving in terms of like the stories they tell. I mean, heck, Todd McFarlane's Spawn started in the mid '90s and is still going strong to like what 300 issues, I believe.
I'll take your word for that.
And the
And
man still writes and draws these himself.
yeah, I can't say the same for the other guy for Image Comics that
Rob.
tries. Everyone keeps saying there's a Youngblood movie coming. It's like, yeah, I'll believe that when I actually see the poster.
I'll believe it when we actually see a trailer like showing stuff.
Yeah.
No. I'll believe it when it's actually saying now playing because even sometimes you can't. When it comes to indie projects like that, you gotta take the word of the producer until it finally comes out. Like it's not like the current day where you get a big studio like Warner Brothers or Marvel pushing muscle behind their work, and you can rest assured they'll mostly come out barring acts of God and stuff.
But now these days they could just say have the excuse to say, "Oh, this will be like a streaming platform exclusive." Yeah, we'll get
Mhm.
away with that.
Yeah, so Superman was definitely like the big first one. DC gave us a lot of the tropes about like the team ups, the types of characters you'd run into, the the yin to the yang of the hero, stuff like that, stuff like, and Marvel took a step further, because the thing about DC was that they came up with guys who were larger than life. These become like, heightened, and then Marvel decided to be, hey, why don't we be more down to earth? Like the Fantastic Four, the first family was about, these four people go into space and come back with crazy powers, and they're still trying to act like a family, even though one of them looks like a rock monster and the other one can ignite himself. So it's like, uh, that became the basis for them. Is not only are these guys quirky and powerful, but they're also a family unit. So that's why you hear a lot of fondness for Marvel's first family.
Well, since the love is at a point, the love wasn't really shared from the parent company. At a point, it's like
Ah, yes,
Fantastic
yes.
Four. I never heard of the guys, which is a shame because that was Stanley's like debut thing, and it was pretty much like a ditch concept. It's like, you know what? I'm sick and tired of just writing like things everybody tells me to write. And even his wife said, you know what? Why don't you? You're gonna quit anyways. Why don't you just like make this one thing that you wanted to do, so get it off your chest. People will probably react badly to it, and you'll say, "Well, I did it anyways, and I'm leaving." And then, of course, the next day it was a huge hit. So it goes to show you how ostracized, no, how your self-esteem could actually change at the whim of reactions to people.
And of course, like I said, so it would be remiss not to mention the powerhouse of '60s Marvel without having like all the creator teams. You got Steve Ditko and Stan Lee making Spider-Man. You got Stan Lee and Jack Kirby working for most of the run, creating like the X-Men, creating the Fantastic Four. It's like Black Panther. A lot of crucial characters that are now household names came from those small creators who, over time, we found out about how credit was not evenly split or this and that. But other than that messy legal business, for the most part, their creations have become rather beloved in the pop culture lexicon. You see people out there going to conventions and Halloween dressing up like these doodles people made over 50 years ago.
I would kind of argue it took a while for like most of the Marvel characters to get their due limelight, because at a point, I think it was like definitely like in early 2000s where the only thing people thought of Marvel was like, okay, so we got Spider-Man, we got the X-Men,
The Hulk.
the Hulk, Fantastic Four, and that's it. Like everyone else is losers. Like, what's this guy running around in a tin can suit?
Or this fellow with on a bike on a Harley with his head on fire. Or
Or this guy with the winged like helmet? Like, come on.
or this fellow who's completely silver and hangs around on a surfboard.
Oh, run in fear, everyone. There's this guy with this arm with a bow and arrow.
Yeah, so obviously we're being facetious, and these characters are now beloved and accepted. But back then, you got a point like, unless you were a super comic book nerd, the common person only saw what was presented to them in the next medium, which we'll probably talk about, which is television.
Like, be
Uh,
honest with you guys. How many of you were actually excited about Black Panther before he made his debut in Civil War? Like, be honest with yourselves.
sure, a certain select few of them were, but the rest of us would probably be like Black Panther, who uh, I
No, no,
remember him
no,
have.
no, 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 no. I know a bigger example. Like, how many of you out there would actually have bought a talking raccoon and a talking alien tree going around in space?
Yeah, that was quite a surprise. But that's the fun thing about comics, is that they can transcend genres. Like some heroes are like almost like hard-boiled detectives, like The Question or Batman. Or some heroes deal with a lot of cosmic stuff, like the Guardians of the Galaxy or the Green Lantern. Some have political thrillers like The Falcon and Black Widow, and all this was going on. The comics weren't really constricted to a box. They were allowed to kind of like let their mind expand. I mean, you had heroes like the Swamp Thing, who is very abstract, especially once Alan Moore got a hold of him.
Yeah, and no, yeah, um,
But yeah, so we didn't mention him. We mentioned him in passing, but we should probably talk about one of the other big heroes in DC's Trinity, because it is a trinity of three heroes. People come to mind. We got Superman, we got Wonder Woman, and we got this guy who grew into
do
prominence
we really
because of
have
this.
to talk about him? I feel like everyone else has already talked him to death.
Well, we'd be remiss not to mention the '60s and how
Uh,
television came into prominence. Like, yes, we've had heroes on television, like with Superman doing the Adventures of Superman with George Reeves, and
which is
we
a
had
damn good, which is a damn good, exciting show, and I'll fight you in the street if you say otherwise.
yeah, and we get like, of course, the people look at back and say it's hokey, but at the time this was true to the comics and entertaining. That would be the 1960s Batman with Adam West and Burt Young. Like you look at it
Burt Ward.
today. Burt Young was someone else. My bad. My mistake. My bad. But Burt Ward, yeah. Wholly confusing actors, Batman. But yeah, that was. Look at it today, and people say, "Oh, how hokey," but some people still get a kick out of it, and they say, like, "Well, it was fun. It was exciting. You had Cesar Romero as the Joker, a clown, like talking about poisoning the water supply with laughing gas, and not in a way that would kill you, but that would make. He just wanted to make people laugh because he thought it'd be a funny prank."
Yeah, although I will have to say, like, I think the hulkiness only comes from the '60s movie, because watching the actual show, you would actually be surprised of how like decent plots go. Like, I think one of the first episodes was the Riddler tricking Batman and Robin to attack him without due process, which of course means he would sue them for unlawful justice, which means that if they would have to face court and have to be forced to show their true identities, which like they actually treated that as like an actual heavy aspect, and maybe like step back and go, I'm sorry, is this the same series that leads us to the shark repellent bat spray?
On top of that, Adam West played him with such seriousness. Like he was having fun with it, but at the same time, he didn't see this as, oh, I'm putting on this gray monkey suit and getting paid for it. He's thinking like, well, I got to be Batman. So when you hear him talk to Robin, he speaks with such earnest, dude. Like he can say stuff like, the sneezing powder is going to be explosive and ignited in 12 minutes. We have to find a way to deactivate it. Like he'll say that with a straight face and be, committed. So you got to admire people who can deal with fantastic material. When you look at it on paper, you go, what? But some of these actors, the best superhero actors, play along with it and make you buy into it with their performance.
Yeah, uh, in a way, it almost makes it feel like Adam West was to Batman what Tom Baker was to Doctor Who, essentially.
Yeah, because if you hear some of the shit that happens in Doctor Who, you'd be like, that's ludicrous. But when you get someone with gravitas like Tom Baker to say it, or you get like people onward, that would end up making you go along with the fun. Because that's what these things are supposed to be in the end, is fun. But television had Batman, it had the Hulk series come around with Bill Bixby and Lou Ferrigno as the alter egos of the Hulk.
Yeah, and at the same time as that would be Wonder Woman with Miss America herself, Linda Carter.
Yeah, and yeah,
Which like the first season was really great. Like I really enjoyed it. I haven't seen any other seasons yet, but like that first season where it was all like a timepiece set in like during World War II, like that's the best it's ever gonna be. I feel.
Yeah. And what's great about these heroes, not only do they have extraordinary abilities, they tend to have dashing, iconic designs. Designs where the minute you see them, you snap your fingers and go, that's that character. Superman with his strongman blue outfit with the red trunks and that big shield S on it. You see that, you go, that's Superman. Batman with his dark grays and his yellows and blues, and you see that bat insignia and realize, Batman.
Yeah. Also the cowl and the capes.
Yeah.
The capes are always important. I know Edna Mode might comment that capes are bad, but I feel it's up to the driver itself. It's like, especially with someone like Batman who can use it as a means of offensive.
Oh yeah, especially in the Arkham games where you get to do a parry where you confuse the guy with a cape twirl and then you start punching the crap out of him. But yeah, like I said, that's another thing about heroes is that they come up with outfits that are fantastical for the paper, and they like sometimes they accent the form to show you how strong they are, or they make the character more appealing to the eye, even though some of the stuff is bizarre. Like Spider-Man's outfit, the logic on it is quite like hard on the eyes, but at the same time, you see that blue and that red, which I think it was black before, but you see that blue and that red of the webbing and those featureless eyes. You just like it just draws you in.
Yeah. Plus, in a way, it could obviously say that the red and blue are also kind of like a sign of an emergency. You know, like how police have the red and blue, and you see it was flashing colors. It's like, oh, things are going down. We have to get like be wary of our surroundings. So when Spider-Man comes zipping in, like the eyes don't miss it. They could people from New York could actually see that and go, oh my God, it's Spider-Man coming in.
Yeah, and that's another thing too is that yeah, like I like the these creators came up with ways of creating iconography where the minute you see them, like your brain is like has a response. Like Wonder Woman is always with that red and blue and that gold, and you go like that's Wonder Woman, that tiara, that's Wonder Woman, and same thing too with you know, some of the more outlandish heroes will have looks that aren't quite conventional. For example, the Swamp Thing or uh,
Or the early Iron Man, which was literally just a huge gray bucket.
Mark One.
Yeah,
And, but there's some heroes that draw from like their inspirations. We get some heroes in DC and Marvel that are named after actual mythological figures like Hercules and Samson,
or
and
like the mighty Thor.
it comes from Norse mythology. And you see him, and they definitely take liberties with the material, but also honor it. Like Loki is actually as mischievous and prank a prankster as he is in the myths. Odin is one-eyed and has his raven. Like so they do stuff, but they add a superhero twist to it. Like by
Like for
day
instance,
he's
Thor is blonde instead of being a redhead.
and also that by day he's unassuming Dr. Donald Blake, but his cane is actually his hammer Mjolnir, and when evil's afoot, he'll just call upon his powers to become the mighty Thor. Like that's another. I think that's another thrill of the heroes for people is the fact that heroes are one way and they're unassuming. You can't think, oh, that person is nobody. And some people probably feel people think I'm nobody. So when they see that nobody becomes someone that's powerful and someone worthy of admiration, people can probably relate to that. Like look at Spider-Man, unassuming Peter Parker with his aunt who's doddering onto him. He's the chemistry nerd, and somebody says, oh, he's nobody. And then I love the first image where you see him. He's looking all downtrodden, and there's like his shadow behind him, and it's of Spider-Man in a heroic pose.
Yeah, and also like that eerie like spider shape behind that figure too.
Mm-hmm. Is he a spider or is he a man? He's the
Or
human spider.
or like the iconic cover of the Incredible Hulk, which sadly only had like a very short run. Not many people know this, but it had the unassuming Bruce Banner, but like the entire background is like in a different shading, as if everyone's fearing something. They're fearing him. No, they're fearing the giant monster that's growing out of him, the giant gray Hulk.
And so that's the funny thing about heroes. They come in all shapes and sizes. You get people like Batman and Wonder Woman who are normal people, and you get people who are a little more stranger looking, like some of the X-Men or Ben Grimm, the Thing from the Fantastic Four, or like the Hulk. And some people like that fantasy aspect of like, I can be this weakly looking fella, but get me pissed off enough, and I become this huge, raging, hulking monster that's just all power.
Yeah, but what's also a big selling point is also when the superheroes decide to team up together. Like especially, um, I think the most iconic moment was seeing all the Marvel heroes like Iron Man, Thor, uh, the Ant Man, Wasp, and all get together by means of beyond their control, especially involving Loki. So it's pretty much just like the first movie, only that movie had Captain America and this doesn't yet.
Yeah.
But seeing them all together, just fighting together, and then deciding, you know what, we're actually kind of a pretty cool team. So why don't we actually like do this more often? Or as
Well,
the other flip side of the coin, where Justice League literally teamed up to fight a giant alien starfish that can breed out miniature starfish that can control people's minds.
Starro, the Conqueror.
I'm seriously going to be more excited when we actually see Starro come out in movie form, because like it might think me silly, but that is kind of like an invasive, like icky thing when you actually think about it more.
Oh yes, and so yeah, team ups became a thing that now it's commonplace. But back then, I was unheard of. Yeah, obviously it was probably done to drive up sales because it'd be like, hey, if you like this hero and this adventure that you didn't see before, maybe you can go back and see some of their other books.
Yeah, I think a big thing that a lot of people were interested in is the fact that there was not only just a team of superheroes, but also a team of sidekick kid characters, essentially with the likes of what would become the Teen Titans.
Oh yeah, which consists of famous sidekicks such as that became branched on their own, like Dick Grayson, aka Robin the Boy Wonder, who was always living in Batman's shadow and decides to help lead this team. And you get other, fantastical characters like Victor Stone, the Cyborg. I forgot.
Raven, Starfire, Beast Boy or Changeling, Speedy, Aqualad, Supergirl, and uh, Donna Troy. The list goes on, essentially.
And as you see, as people who read comics know, sometimes publishers have a habit of crapping on these characters for no reason. Ask what happened to poor Speedy. I mean, not Speedy, Roy Harper.
Yeah, he is a single father, but he also had a moment where he oh hell with it. He actually did drugs growing up.
and and obviously, that's another thing about the comics. Sometimes they would use the heroes as PSAs. Like, and famously, there was the Spider-Man issue where his best friend Harry, son of the Green Goblin, has a very bad, drug case that almost kills him, and they made that into, people would see that as teaching lessons, and sometimes they're a little on the nose about it. Like they'll look to the screen and say, "Don't do this or that," and it's very
Or
GI.
or most of the hokey ones involving Batman and like from Zeller's the Wonders of Reading. But yeah, we are discussing a lot of the traditional comic book superheroes, but there are also like superheroes that were made as like their own original concepts that were debut in stuff like TV or even movies, like, for example.
hmm Such as I'm trying to see where you're going with this.
Yeah, so like essentially it would be like characters like Powerpuff Girls from Cartoon Network, the three kindergarten superheroes that pretty much they were pretty much like essentially miniature Supermen or Superwomen, essentially that fly around, laser vision, had pretty much had the works.
Yeah, and the great thing about that is that it was pretty much it took a lot of like familiar superhero tropes. Like you got the mayor with the phone telling him when trouble's in, which is basically like the red phone that they had in the Batman series. You had them being able to fly. One of them has like ice breath, like Superman. It's like they take that form, but they put it in an
Like
entertaining format.
yeah, which all kind of it's almost kind of in a way like a mixture between like classic comic book heroes, but also like the pulp cartoons. I think I would describe them like Rocky and Bullwinkle and stuff such.
Yeah, and you would see them like they would deal with the problem of the day. And the funny thing is that they're still kids, even though they can lift up whole trucks with their single hand. They're still kids, so they have problems. They go to their dad when they're feeling down with stuff. They bicker among each other when they want to share stuff. It's like they're still kids, but you add on top of that they can also fly at light speed and punch a monster in the face. So that's that fun little dichotomy right there.
Yeah, essentially, especially when they got away with stuff like it's essentially like their most iconic villain being like a super intelligent ape. Obviously, probably a nod on Planet of the Apes, or even like Grodd, I believe.
Yeah.
Actually, now that I think about it, that would actually be an interesting crossover. Gorilla Grodd versus Mojo Jojo.
Yeah.
Warner Brothers,
Yeah.
make that happen.
Well, right now they're
But
making a
also
live act.
even to the point where they actually fight the devil himself. Of course, they would just only call him,
Although,
essentially.
funnily enough, despite being called him in his unassuming, normal form, so to speak, he comes as an almost effeminate, harmless guy with lobster claws. And when he would get pissed off, he would turn into a shady, shadowy version of the Beelzebub everyone all knows. But I'm surprised
Yeah.
they let that fly on TV looking back then.
Well, actually, they let that whole like devil, effeminate devil motif go get past the FCC back in the most of the 90s. Remember Cow and Chicken with their red guy, essentially they were called.
Oh man, yeah. But yeah, yeah, you had the Powerpuff Girls, which for people like Derek, I mean, I don't mean like that way, but I mean like for anyone who had access to like cartoons, that was their like superhero gateway before you, 'cause you got your big ones like Batman, Superman, but they already had shows that had kind of came before them, so having this made for them like probably really stuck with them. And you have all other heroes that came in the Cartoon Network pipeline, like say Ben 10, who's a spin on like Green Lantern meets how would you describe it?
Um, hmm. Now it is kind of like Green Lantern, but instead of like making constructs out of a ring, it's essentially changing your entire DNA with a alien watch
Yeah,
to take on the
and
forms of different aliens to combat with specific scenarios. Like in a muscle guy, why not have like literally 4 arms to
Goro.
yourself? Yeah. Or you want super speed, you got a super velociraptor alien. Or if you want essentially a brainiac, you got like the tiny gray matter, or even like have like water based uh fights. You got Ripjaws, and like the list just went on essentially.
Funny enough, even though I believe they did in the show, it's called Ben 10 not only for the rhyming factor, but also the fact that at the time the Omnitrix could only hold like 10 forms, I believe.
The 10 forms was essentially like the default, but
And
it
over
it
time, it was like,
it was essentially like the safety lock. It actually was housing much more alien DNA, but it needed to be unlocked from acquiring said DNA.
level progression like in MMOs.
Yeah, or sometimes from dumb luck, like with the addition of Cannon Bolt.
Oh yeah, that's the round one that looks like a hamster ball when you right?
Yeah, but even sometimes, but even that one had a very sinister form that essentially escaped from the watch, Ghost Freak.
Oh,
Which,
I like Ghost Freak.
yeah, I really like that until they decided, you know what, let's just make him be a villain. But
Oh, we'll get
that's literally the health hazard of being a superhero.
we'll,
Sometimes uh, your greatest weapons for like justice can sometimes come back to bite you in the ass.
yeah, we'll get into that. We have a whole section about small tropes that amuse us and small tropes that get on our nerves, and not like in a bad way, but we'll get into that. But yeah, so Ben 10 also takes the same concept of what if you had like a regular kid, has problems with his cousin, lives with his grandpa, that kind of stuff. Very relatable for the target demographic, and then you get this this whammy of a watch that lets you like assume all these powerful forms, and he has to go through the ropes of learning how to use his powers responsibly because everyone who's heard this a million times from the Spider-Man comics, with great
Great
power must also.
power comes great responsibility. Yeah, but Cartoon Network wasn't the only channel that was like creating their own superheroes. Even Nickelodeon were creating their own superheroes. Like essentially, you got your like one-offs that were in other shows, like your Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy for SpongeBob, or your Crimson Chin for Fairly Odd Parents. But entire shows dedicated to superheroes, none comes to mind greater than Danny Phantom, essentially.
Which is like Ghostbusters meets superheroing.
Yeah, that's essentially what I would describe it. That um, honestly, I'm surprised how much I literally borrowed off from Danny Phantom, creating my character. Almost a little bit down to the art style, a little bit. But don't sue me, Butch. I'm literally evolving my art. I'm honest, please.
he has his own problems to worry about. Trust me.
Okay,
uh,
okay, but it was really it was kind of like a surprising thing, essentially. See it evolve, especially in the show. Danny actually starts out looking like a lanky design, like he's not really like a buff superhero, but as the series progressed, he would actually get an emblem added to his suit, and he would actually have like a physique actually built, and you can actually see it happening, evolving, which is like a pretty like a little nice detail that you would think that they would never factor in, but it's a nice little touch to add in.
And also another thing Danny has that's pretty good that everyone should probably remember as a staple for superheroes is a good support staff. You know, some of the best superheroes don't save the world alone, and they have their very human allies to help them. For Batman, it's Alfred and Commissioner Gordon. For Superman, it's Jimmy Olsen and Lois Lane. For
Or
Danny, it's
even
just
or Jaime Reyes, the third Blue Beetle, literally his whole family.
that's just yeah. So sometimes you get these people become extraordinary people not with their powers, but by the way they're able to help keep the hero grounded. Like Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen help keep Superman, informed of what's going on and also kind of keep him, sane.
Or
Because
yeah, no, keep going. I was gonna have another point to continue on with.
yeah, and I mentioned them because like I said, Danny Phantom has a really good support staff with Sam and Tuck, best friends who are the only ones that are in on the secret and kind of help cover for him, but also go on the same adventures of figuring out what the threat is and solutions and being his support when he feels down. Like so, a lot of some of the best heroes have like really good memorable support crew.
Yeah, and the same goes for like the other superhero show that comes to mind from Nickelodeon was My Life as a Teenage Robot, which is essentially a teenage robot girl who at first had to be kept as a secret. Essentially, she was just essentially sent to assess and find threats and put them to rest, and then have to go back in hiding. And of course, the supporting cast comes in and actually helps her get to enjoy life being a teenage girl, since she is literally built as a teenager. But of course, the strange, bizarre things come into play, and of course, the normal life has to be put to halt as the teenage robot has to do her robot duties.
Yeah, she has such a cute name. She's known as XJ9, but they come to calling her Jenny, and that really stuck.
Yeah. Well, actually, she chose to call herself Jenny.
Yeah, that makes sense because I believe the inventor kept insisting on referring to her by her code name.
XJ9?
Like it's like as all kids know, when your parent calls you by your full given name, you're probably in hot water.
Yeah. But going back to Danny Phantom, one thing I feel like Action, My Life as a Teenage Robot didn't have as much was like the lore that was surrounding the hero, because like the you got to have your superhero, but you also got to have your world building too behind it. So you got like Batman with the bleak and musty Gotham City, or like even the Avengers having to deal with the day-to-day life, knowing that New York City has like aliens, androids, and wizards walking about. You have like in Danny Phantom two different worlds: the human world and the ghost world. And the ghost world is full of like iconic baddies that everyone can list off the top of their mind. There's Ember, uh, the Box Ghost, Lunch Lady,
The
the
box goes.
Sculptor, and Vlad Plasmius, and the list goes on. It's like every hero has to have like a great baddie assortment, and Danny Phantom had that in spades, honestly.
Yeah, and hell, that's a good thing to point out is a hero is only as good as their villain. And like Stan Lee famously said, I always think the toughest thing is coming up with new villains. Like once you got the hero, you got him. You make your hero and use them in every story, but you got to come up with some new thread of the week, and you'd come up with things like Spider-Man has such an impressive rogues gallery. You got comes to mind Doctor Octopus. He's a guy who had mechanical arms all to his body, so he's using them in extra ways to like steal stuff, be Spider-Man, and take tea at the same time. You got the Chameleon, a guy who can like literally disguise himself as anything. So sometimes Spider-Man has to think, am I really talking to the person I'm supposed to be talking to, or he has to put up with getting framed. The Sandman, a guy who can like turn himself into sand, but also make it rock hard and make punching implements and get bigger and stuff.
Yeah, and I agree with Stanley. Essentially, creating villains is actually a tricky thing. At the start, I literally had to borrow villain ideas from like early on friends, but as time progressed, I did come up with some like zany bad guys essentially, and I've already kind of debuted one. Essentially, it's another electric villain, but I mean, like everyone's gonna have at least one of those. Let's be real.
Superman has Livewire. Spider-Man has Electro.
And I believe Danny Phantom had a Technus, essentially.
Oh, I remember them.
I am Technus!
But every now and then you get people who use electricity for good, like Static Shock.
Oh yeah, Static Shock. That's a bit of a very interesting history behind that one. So essentially, it was a DC spin-off project, or actually no, it was a different comic book property that would eventually be absorbed to DC, and they decided, okay, we'll call this shoot, I forgot what they were called. It was like something verse. It was a universe that's based on the name of um well, essentially the Ground Zero event was like this almost kind of like this explosion of gas essentially that changes uh human structure, and one of the characters that gets affected because he was in the wrong place at the wrong time was Static Shock, Virgil Hawkins.
Yeah.
Yep.
And was actually I remember they would call them Bang Babies in the animated version that came out. Yeah. But now that I think about it, oh my gosh, Marvel totally copied that with their Inhumans into Terrigen Mist that created like Miss Marvel and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, that's the funny thing about comic books is everybody steals from everybody at some point. You get for every dark side, you get a Thanos. For every
Deathstroke, you get a Deadpool.
Yeah. So as the joke goes, who ripped off who? Well, essentially everybody ripped off everybody. So shrug.
That's essentially yes, but no.
Yes. So I was thinking about the whole. That reminded me of the Inhuman event at the Terrigen Bomb that ended up releasing Inhumans when they were trying to phase out the X-Men for whatever reason because of behind-the-scenes drama. But that got resolved, so that's neither here or there. But yeah. So now, if you were a kid in the 80s and 90s, you would be inundated with a lot of animated shows about these characters. We already mentioned a few with the Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network creations. We also have your iconic staples like Spider-Man getting a show like Spider-Man and Friends, or the Justice League coming together in the Super Friends, which also included heroes that were exclusive to that thing, like the Wonder Twins.
Yeah. But it's honestly a really enjoyable ride. There's even um the concept of superheroes even reached out so far to Japan, essentially, where they have like their own heroes, essentially. Like you could date back all the way to like the likes of Astro Boy, who is pretty much just like My Life as a Teenage Draw, but way before that, as essentially a little boy, Cyborg, and just fly around and shoots ammo out of his butt.
Well, I mean, that's the most famous thing about it. But other than that, is the fact that, yeah, he was, it's kind of like a Pinocchio story almost. He was the son of a scientist, ends up dying, and he brings it back to life as a robot. And that became an archetype in Japan. Like, you got even the famous Rockman, known in the States as Mega Man, kind of being an Astro Boy-like figure.
Yeah, but yeah, a lot of these superhero ideas like have a lot of like inspirations, like just like what you said with Astro Boy being like almost kind of like Pinocchio when you think about it.
Oh, yeah, and there were many heroes like Blackjack. I mean, like, they're not superheroes like the way Western comics would like to know them, but sometimes they do acknowledge it. For example, a superhero story gone bad probably could be Akira could probably be seen as that with the main antagonist Tetsudo kind of being given supernatural abilities and just going off the deep end like a la Chronicle. Actually, Chronicle probably ripped off Akira more than people realized.
Yeah, or the likes of Guyver, which Jonesy helped introduce me. Essentially, it's think of like Ben 10, but it's a actually no, think of it like the Blue Beetle, essentially, the third one, where
and
like a
Venom.
living suit, essentially.
Yeah, and the Bio Booster, and like yeah, so their heroes are like they're just as wild as ours, and it adheres to the culture. You got your heroes that go inside giant robots. That's essentially like the Defenders of the Galaxy, or whatever they call those DVDs you'd find, like Gotcha Man. That's
Yeah,
like your Voltrons.
or even at least like Power Rangers or Super Sentai. Those are superheroes too.
It's funny they owe their existence to a superhero going over there when they made the toy Spider-Man series over there, the Emissary
Yeah,
from
that's
Hell.
right. I forgot. So you're welcome, all you Power Rangers fans. Spider-Man literally created your entire mythos.
Yep, and he's going to be appearing in Spider-Verse too. They say.
Ooh, that's gonna be awesome. I can't wait.
Yeah, and yeah, Japan has a funny way of interpreting heroes. Sometimes they make fun of them, or sometimes they kind of take the tropes but add their own Eastern flair to it. Like Dragon Ball is essentially Journey into the West with the when it became Dragon Ball Z, it added a pinch of Superman to it.
Yeah. The dubbing really like laid it thick on the whole. Like Goku is pretty much like Superman when you think about it.
Oh, and they really hit it home with the recent reboot of his origin in Dragon Ball Super Broly. That's essentially an entire Krypton sequence.
Yeah, but even like close to nowadays, where Japan put out a very interesting idea that is literally a huge homage or celebration of superheroes, which of course everyone already knows is My Hero Academia.
I think it's also known as Bokugu BNH.
Yeah,
I'm not going to try to butcher the name.
yeah. Good luck trying to say that. Just say My Hero,
Yeah,
essentially.
and I just got introduced to him. If anyone was watching our X-Men series, they know that I kind of already grew an infatuation with one of the characters I knew without no context. So if you ever wonder why the heck Asue, Sue Asue,
It's Sue. Just call her Sue.
yeah, her friends call her Sue. Froppy, would pop up at the end of our X-Men bits just because it would start off as a one-off joke comparing Toad to Asue, and yeah, things like one thing led to another. So he thought, why did he get me into the show? And what's funny about this is that it's very fresh, but at the same time, it's very time honored. It follows a lot of the tropes you would expect to hear. I mean, the whole basis of this thing is, what if superheroing was a regular occurrence in life? Like strange abilities are called quirks are appearing all over the place, and people use them to either be heroes or villains. But most of the time, they go down the heroic route, where it's almost a career path. Like you got your school saying, "What do you want to do when you get out of here?" Oh, we know you're going to be heroes. So it's fun. It also has a fanboy character in the form of Izuku Midoriya.
Izuku
Um,
Midoriya. Yep.
yeah,
Or
and
as many would just call him Deku, because Bakugo uh, calls him that, but he turns that around to be as an affectionate term.
yeah. So Midoriya is someone who's like the rest of us. He doesn't quite have when you first meet him. He doesn't quite have any abilities, but he has the drive to be a hero. And you see from his eyes how superheroing is viewed. Like you got all these people who become pro heroes that use their abilities in the public eye, and they're admired and revered, such as like the great All Might, who I'm already endeared to after meeting him in 3 episodes.
I am here.
Yeah, and it's great is that he's essentially that universe's Superman, and he's very inspirational. So I'm saying it has a lot of the tropes you would see if you watched any Marvel film or DC film. You're like, oh, well, that's a lot like this and that, but it doesn't feel like it's ripping it off. It feels like it's putting a fresh spin on it.
I'm honestly just gonna say this. It would be so goddamn hard to adapt this the wrong way for a movie. I'm just saying it right now. It's like, how hard can it be to adapt a superhero project that's anime into a movie?
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to stray pretty far from the source material, like those other adaptations that tried and failed. But these days, people are all about sticking to the source while adding your own spin to it. So I'm pretty sure they can make it work. And it has all the things you would expect from a superhero show.
Yeah,
Visual,
he's still early in it. It's like we only just finished the third episode together, but I've already seen the first season. Um, Half of the second season I haven't finished it yet, but I have seen like the latest movie, which that was like awesome, and pretty much my last movie going experience for that year that shall not be named happened last year.
mine was Sonic.
Well,
But
actually no, yeah, it was that and also Sonic afterwards because I missed uh the first the first third of it because like that goddamn blizzard that blew in.
oh yeah, yeah, where he's at, I'm guessing Captain Cold and Killer Frost must have a thing for him over there.
Yeah, although it's thawing out pretty faster nowadays around
Yeah.
here, so that's That's good.
Yeah.
Uh,
So, but yeah, My Hero though is definitely like I can see why it's gotten such a popularity boom in the last few years since it debuted because well, superheroes are everywhere and they struck while that iron is hot and released this property that is easily accessible for anybody who knows a thing about superheroes, but also has very quirky designs, very elaborate characters that you immediately everyone has their favorite the minute they see one. We have a friend who became instantly enamored with the giantress that is Mount Lady, and I can see why after seeing the first debut episode.
yeah. Uh, and also there was also a lot of superhero concepts that were birthed not from comics, not from movies, not from TV, but from video games, which honestly, when you think about it, is pretty much like the easiest way to create superheroes to enjoy and learn and meet.
Yeah, however, some of them will drop the ball horribly. Every now and then you'll get a Superman 64.
Yeah, but obviously you would also have um, original concepts like Sony PlayStation's Infamous, or
Uh,
even the likes of the Lego games, essentially for both the Marvel and DC.
uh, like for years, people have watched these heroes, but the games attempted to make people be these heroes, and that only really started turning around with the turn of modern gaming. Once the graphics stopped being little sprites and they started actually doing stuff with them, you started to actually feel like Spider-Man 2000 on the PlayStation was pretty much people's first experience of saying, "Hey, I'm actually web swinging instead of just fighting Electro and he won't come down and there's like a million clocks on the wall." And yeah.
Those were the days. Like
But
those were the days.
yeah, and obviously people play that game now and say, oh, it's kind of rigid and really linear, right? And then you would get down the line, you would get the licensed tie-in film to Spider-Man 2, you would get Spider-Man 2 the game, which would give you free roaming webbing, and all the games since then would like adapt that somehow.
Which would lead up to um, essentially the other side of the coin. Batman finally coming out and saying, "Hey, I'm done with having like bad video games post the Super Nintendo." So in comes Arkham Asylum, obviously that changes everything.
Oh yes, and not only did that game have a pretty flowing combat system that made you feel like Batman, it's also steeped in the lore of him. Like one of the things you do is use detective mode, and you would have these little riddles pop up, and you would solve them. You would actually unlock character bios for characters that live in the universe, like Prometheus, uh, Victor Zsasz, stuff like that. And it would make it feel more like you're in that world. You're not just playing a licensed game of, oh, I'm playing scenes from a movie. You're actually seeing this world and feeling like you're becoming part of this Batman world. They're down there. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and then going back to the Infamous games, I have more of a history on this, uh, not Jonesy, but it's essentially a concept that's almost kind of like Static Shock in a way, where a huge explosion happened, and essentially there's a lot of supers there appearing, and you play as one who has electricity powers, shock of all shocks. But
I
yeah,
see what you did there.
yeah, but the Infamous games were pretty good. They had the whole open world thing going that um, Batman Arkham City would also have. Um, and it wasn't until like the second game where like you could actually feel like you could move around and actually like have the moral choices weren't as black and gray in that one. Although I would say the third one, second song where you play as someone else, um, the moral choices were even like more gray when you think about it. But like the effects do have like meaning, because like we were at a point where superheroes were like going to be seen as something other than the goody goodies. So like essentially we wanted to create our own super beings. You either being like good or evil. Like as our friend Megan used to play City of Heroes back in the day, and she still does essentially. I actually helped create a character for her just to goof around because she was bored one night, and it's essentially like it was a shadow person because she was kind of high off of like reading like Dark Neon Redux and all that, and uh, yeah, no, it is fun to see like people decided to try to break from the normal superheroes and say, okay, let's get experimental. Let's let people choose what kind of heroes, or even sometimes bad guys or anti-heroes, and let them choose how they want to look or be.
Yeah, that's another thing we should touch on is that in the 80s and 90s, you saw a lot of deconstruction of the heroes from instead of being these black and white paragons of good, you'd actually have some shades of gray thrown in there. I mean, you'd have guys who would bend the law pretty badly that in other worlds would be considered villains, but they're technically still protagonists, like Frank Castle, the Punisher. And
Or even the likes of the Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Rises, which that
Returns.
one, yeah, or Returns. Okay, sorry. It's the same R. It's the same term.
Yeah, it's okay, common mistake, but yeah, where
But
Batman is. Yeah.
yeah, where Batman comes out of retirement because the world has gone into complete hopelessness, and he has decided, okay, retirement was literally a bad call. I have to come back and literally fix everything and make sure that things stay where they are and don't get worse after I'm gone.
Yeah, like for him, the world only makes sense when he forces it to, because you got people like Superman, but they're at the beck and call of the government, and you got Amazons going back to isolation and stuff like that. So it's a pretty bleak world. And in the 80s, you saw the deconstruction of the hero to say, like, well, what if they weren't always so clear cut? Like, Batman's world became even worse and crappier, so he had to become more brutal and violent, but he still never broke his principles. Like even though the Joker was on a massacre, he was still able to prevent himself from ending the guy. So the guy had to do it himself to frame Batman. But still, it's like Batman is one of those guys who's unbending in his principles. That's what's interesting about him. It makes him a little bit distant and cold to some of his fellow teammates, but yeah, that's Batman. He's never compromising, and also in the same vein as in Watchmen, which is an entire deconstruction of the tropes and what if they were real and it would be bad for this world, like maybe especially when you get a super guy like Dr. Manhattan who becomes cold and distant the longer he gets away from his humanity due to the way he perceives time and space.
Yeah, so you would have someone who literally only could see things in black and white, like Rorschach, who it's like if you don't you do not you never compromise. You have to like stand for what's right, or just essentially let someone wipe you out for thinking otherwise.
Yeah, man. Well, and it'd be a nice sentiment if he wasn't so darn insane, because the book doesn't paint Rorschach in a sympathetic light. It tries to tell you that if this guy was a real guy, you would think he was a psychopath.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I guess it was you got to blame Jackie Earl Haley for making him such a sympathetic figure.
Well, I mean, that was the point. Alan Moore said you're not supposed to really relate to anybody because when you think about it, these guys are more harmful to society than they're helpful. I mean, Ozymandias goes off the deep end thinking the only way to save the world from nuclear annihilation is to create this elaborate hoax that would result in the deaths of millions to save billions. And any sane person would say that kind of thinking is absolute madness. But in his smart mind, it makes sense. And what's sad is it does work in that book. Say what you will about the so-called sequels that came afterward that were talking about what happens afterward, but in the book, the bad guy technically wins, but the bad guy isn't bad because he's a villain. He's just uh, some guy thinking he's doing the right thing, but it comes with horrific, cost and stuff.
Yeah, but going back to video games, it is incredibly interesting to see how like diverse the genre is when you think about it. Like superheroes could be put it into an RPG sense, like with stuff like Marvel Ultimate Alliance, or uh, like the X-Men Legend games.
Yeah, and why you think, oh, how hard can it be to ruin superheroes? Well, sometimes you get your buggy messes like Batman Dark Tomorrow.
Or Superman Man of Tomorrow.
No, okay, so I guess the rule should be never put tomorrow in your hero title, huh?
Uh, yeah,
Eh,
that's pretty much essentially the unspoken rule.
Yeah,
But
and
also
also
superheroes do make a very good, interesting topic to put for fighting games, like essentially the Marvel versus Capcom games, which like that. You think Super Smash Brothers was a crazy concept? How about literally having comic book superheroes fighting Capcom All Star rosters?
yeah, you can have Ryu, Shoryukening Venom. You could have a Spider-Man giving a kick to Chun-Li, stuff like that. Uh, Little Red BB Hood from one obscure Capcom game is a Riding Hood with guns, and she's fighting alongside the daughter of Son Goku and Son Son.
Wow, that actually happened, huh?
Yeah, that's Marvel vs. Capcom 2, Age of Heroes.
Damn.
But yeah,
But
uh,
also, the big one, obviously, a lot of people mostly know is the DC's take with the Injustice line. Well, actually, first it was their attempt with the their own crossover with Mortal Kombat, which we'll talk about in another day. But
very soon,
they
I
never,
think.
yeah. But NetherRealms decided, okay, you know what? We could actually make a game entirely based on these guys, and the Injustice games are pretty uh, a pretty nice way to just get in to have a little bit of taste of different lore of like these casting characters that you don't really know, especially in Injustice 2, where you got like us guys like the Nuclear Man, you got Blue Beetle, got
Firestorm.
Gorilla, yeah, Gorilla Grodd, uh, Doctor Fate, of all things. Like I got essentially excited for Doctor Fate because he's essentially like this all being that's able to see through time and space and like able to travel the entire universe in a blink of an eye.
Yeah, and we should also point this out. This is a concept that comic book heroes love to do: is shaking up the status quo with stories that aren't pertaining to the canon. In the case of Marvel, it'd be their what ifs or even their Ultimates line, which would be like none of the baggage of the company that came before. And in DC, they have what they call their Elseworlds label, like they explore worlds that are possible. Or I mean, when they created the multiverse, they can say, well, this happened on Earth 37, or this happened on that. So you have one where what if Batman and Superman were actually women, or what if Lex Luthor was an altruistic figure, and the Superman, like the Ultraman, was actually the bad guy of that universe, stuff like that. So
Uh,
Injustice,
yeah, but let's not get into how many times like DC were like flipping over their ideas of okay, let's not have multiple universes, but they kind of do because that's where we kind of get our money from. So okay, let's bring the multiverses back. Okay, but can we change the timeline of it? Okay, fine, let's just change it again. Actually,
oh
people
yeah,
don't like this timeline. Fine, change it again.
best watch all of Lankara's reviews about events about that how that stuff plays out, especially New 52.
Oh god, New 52.
What were they thinking? But oh, that's one thing comic book fans have become accustomed to is constant reinvention, only to go back to what worked before because the money went away.
Yeah, so as we were saying, that as just Jonesy was going to, it's Elseworld of Injustice is essentially what if Superman killed the Joker after he forced him to destroy Metropolis and pretty much killing his wife and unborn child.
Yikes! Like I remember anybody in Universe of Heroes that goes, Jesus, like no wonder.
Yeah, so essentially Superman said, enough is enough. We are going to actually stop crime before it ever happens. And oh gee, I wonder where this is gonna go. Oh, Superman's the evil one. Yeah, never heard of that one before.
Although Injustice does a good job of making sure that Superman is portrayed as evil per se, just misguided because of the grief he sustained. Like I love
Yeah, no, if you want an evil superhero in that world, it's literally Wonder Woman. That Wonder Woman's a bitch. Let's be clear.
but don't you mean Bonkers Betty?
You know what? I'm actually at the point where I'm literally gonna call her that.
Oh yeah, and it took the Prime world Wonder Woman to tell the Amazons, hey, listen, we're supposed to be teachers of men and the better person here. Doing this is just making them afraid of us and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, and Superman goes too far, and he does cross the line, and it does tell you where does the line between hero and villain lie for some people, and what if someone with great power, like Superman, who's thank God is on our side, if he were to suddenly flip a switch, what would happen? So that's what Injustice kind of explores, and those are pretty fun games. If the combat's actually pretty solid on those.
Oh yeah, and Injustice 2 also does have this fun way of incorporating really out there crossovers like you would never think of, like the likes of Hellboy or even like goodness, like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles of all things. Like who actually even saw that one coming?
No, no one did. So yeah, so we've had experience in a lot of games. Like we're kind of generalizing, but
I feel like one of the best superhero games that came out um, in these past years is definitely the Sony Spider-Man games.
be greater.
Yep, both the Peter Parker one and the Miles Morales one.
Oh, and that's the great thing about these heroes that they've lasted for a long time, that they can start having offshoots. Batman begets Batgirl, begets Oracle, begets like Spider-Man ends up training right. Like you get all these offshoots that end up becoming classics in their own right. Like Miles Morales was thought to be a just a stunt casting for how they would shake up the Spider-Man formula, and he ended up becoming one of the most beloved characters afterwards.
Or even in the same vein in the same comic universe, Miss Marvel uh, going to become Captain Marvel, so who gets the moniker of Miss Marvel? Kamala Khan, essentially.
Who owns the distinction of being a Pakistani character actually originated and created by a Pakistani author. So there's some representation there because some people feel that it is important to be seen in these things, like see themselves in it. So that's why Black Panther was a big deal for people because that was a black character who was portrayed in a very good light, and not only that, but also in a position of power and a position of esteem. We're in a time when they weren't quite getting that in real life. You got this character that shows that hey, the world can be a better place, and he looks like me.
Yeah, so it is really good to see like a lot of up and comers, comic creators getting a chance to bring representation for them. I know a lot of people are kind of sick of the whole representation thing, but it all depends on the execution. When you actually are doing it just for the representation,
It's a gimmick.
yeah, it's a gimmick. But when you actually are having the idea of having representation, but you have like this greater concept of, huh, you know what? Maybe I could have this uh, young Mexican character taking on the next Blue Beetle mantle, but they could actually give him like some ethos, like his own wants and desires that like you would never think of, essentially, and it actually helps him stand out as his own character. Like that's when you actually get like a hero in the making.
Yeah, because everybody who knows Latin families knows how family is such an integral part. So when you have this guy who has this big deep secret he can't keep from his family, and they end up getting in on it and actually assisting him with this big problem of having a weapon brought into your body, it kind of drives it more home, makes it feel more real rather than just feeling like, oh look, we got a Latin guy just so we can say we got a Latin guy. They actually made him a full fledged character.
Yeah, I do feel like kind of half of the Marvel Next Gen kind of almost didn't get as far, but like the ones that did, like Kamala Khan and Miles Morales, like they're here to stay. Let's be real, guys. These guys are going to be here for a long time, and good on them
And
for it.
and with the media always being changed to like we're seeing them in games now. We saw Miss Marvel appear in the recent Marvel Avengers game, despite problems besetting that. But
Which is not a fully bad game. I swear to God. Like uh, the latest patch, you can replay your campaign now. So
that's good. But still, like if she appeared in that, and Miles Morales appeared in the not only in the Spider-Verse movie, but also in the Spider-Man game for the PS5. So and there's rumors that he might make his appearance in live action one day. So these characters that are evented that you think could be a flash in the pan end up really becoming long mainstays. Like one of the most famous examples going to the 90s is DC Animated Universe creating Harley Quinn, the sidekick of the Joker, a henchwoman who was meant to be a one-off character, but once she was given such personality and such life through her actress and Paul Dini's writing, she ended up actually appearing in the comics and is now, you see her at cosplay conventions everywhere now.
Yeah, or even flip the coin to the Marvel side, where X-Men Evolution debuted Logan's cloned daughter, essentially, X-23, Lara, essentially.
And that ended up breaking into the comics, and eventually found that concept found its way into the last Hugh Jackman movie, Logan, which we did a whole retrospective of on our X-Men series. So look for that if you want to
We're
get a
we're,
chance.
we're essentially just name dropping our previous projects. Go watch.
Yeah, but anyway, so we're bringing up original product and up and comers. Well, I think it'd probably be a good chance for you to go ahead and share a little bit about yours to everyone, because as you probably guessed by our glancing over and our talk about excitement about some of this stuff, that we like this idea of heroes, and Derek definitely has an eye for this. I mean, how it's what prompted him to make his creation.
Yeah. So like the reason why I kind of had decided to have us talk about heroes is because I just really wanted to gush about this hero I've created, the Dark Neon. Essentially, it's capital D A R K capital N E O N as one word.
No
And
hyphen.
yeah, I know a lot of people are going to get that wrong, but I don't know. It's essentially how I came up with it. It was kind of like a class project name, and I decided I kind of stuck with it. It's kind of flashy in a way, but it's essentially I had my original concept was make I wanted to try to shape up the superhero ethos by having like superheroes essentially reach a point where they might be seen as the oppressing bad guys, and like the protagonists would be like the villains that would actually shake up the core, which you would actually kind of get that with stuff like The Boys or such something like that. I haven't seen The Boys yet, but I did realize like at a point even way back then when I was coming up with that concept, I knew that I wasn't experienced enough to actually pull that off. I wanted it to come off in a way where like yes, these guys are like oppressors, but they're still superheroes. They're still like stopping disasters. They're still like stopping crime. They're still like keeping the peace and order and justice and all that. But it's just the manner and method has reached a point where it's kind of gotten a point where free will is kind of like uh, a little bit hampered slightly. And
So injustice.
yeah, it's essentially like that. And I realized that I was never going to pull it off, so I decided, okay, so what am I going to do essentially? So I decided, okay, what if a lot of people have like these villains be like the darkness and all that shadowy things, and yeah, there are some hero concepts that already came where they're kind of delving into the dark, shadowy powers, but I really wanted it to show like the whole darkness and shadows thing is like in a positive light essentially. So I wanted a character that was controlling darkness and shadows all around like as a weapon. So it's almost kind of like Green Lantern in a way where he keeps able to form constructs and such, but he's also able to like generate a strength or even create shadows from himself.
Yeah. And that was also the idea for you, that you admitted that some of the concepts were he's not quite a self-insert, but some of you was really made its way into the character, including the that one of the darker aspects of his powers being the sometimes his rage can get the better of him.
Well, yeah, I gave him essentially a backstory where like the strange and bizarre has happened to him, but he was only only one able to witness and remember a lot of these things, and also the fact that he was powerless to help his own older sister from like an event that like took her life as she was defending him, and it's like it's reached a point where like all of that pent up rage aggression of not being able to do like right being powerless essentially has reached a point where it might hinder him. So once he gets powers, he's chosen by this angelic being who says, the shadows themselves have decided that you have the ability to handle the darkness to control around the entire multiple universes. And his anger would, it's almost kind of like, in a way, it's like when you think of Hulk, where anger has reached to a point where it's kind of overpowering their powers. I know I'm rambling a little bit, but it's just um,
Hey, it is called rambling, bros. You're allowed to ramble.
yeah. So it, but it, I do it. It did come from like a familiar place because I do have like um aggressive rage outs at certain points of my time, but I've learned to have to control it, especially when I have to work out in public and uh,
Oh, Lord, the Lord knows you need all the patience you can with what you deal with.
yeah. But
So
I did feel like I needed like something that made it sure that he wasn't completely overpowered. So I needed something. Actually, funny thing. Originally, I made it that the powers himself, whenever it was active, like it would actually try to push him to do like these aggressive things. And over time, I felt like that would probably be not the way to do that. So
it would be a lot like
it would be more it would be more tied to his anger. It's like if he ever got angry once, but then as I went on, I was like, okay, no, heroes had to have like moments where they get like angry. You're able to get angry. It's when the rage sets in where things get ugly.
but it's like there's such thing as righteous anger. Like you see that all in hero movies when like the hero's on their last luck and then the villain has to make that snide remark about the loved one in danger, and that gives him that second win. Spider-Man's a good example of that.
Yeah. Or even Superman, where like he loses Lois Lane in the first Superman movie, and he knows like it was forbidden to interfere with the human timelines, and he essentially says, "You know what? No, just let me have this one."
Yeah. So yeah, and I think the way that your philosophy on the powers would be, it's just like with like any weapon or power that it's not that the darkness or powers themselves are malicious. It just depends on who's using them.
Right. And I do still have like beings that do delve into like dark arts and magics and alien types and all that. But it's essentially this guy is literally able to commune with the darkness itself. It's able to see everything as if it's like you might see like darkness and shadows as like, oh, it's absence of light. Well, to him, he able to see it as like this like Jack Kirby crackle of sorts, which
Oh,
was
so like Spectrum, Monica Rambeau, and the Spectrum Vision kind of.
yeah, essentially, but it's a lot more cooler when he sees it.
Yeah,
Especially when like the sun gets low enough, he's able to see it like across like the world around him.
that could probably be a scientific explanation for why his eyes have that unearthly glow that they do.
Oh yeah, but it's also to it's also it's mostly like a body instinctual thing to like hide his identity.
Not yeah,
Like it
but
like
yeah,
he doesn't in essence he doesn't really need to change his outlook, but like he's willed the darkness to try to make him look different. And essentially, also kind of gives him like this like confidence that he lacks just a little bit because he always obviously got pushed around a little bit from like bullies and all that such and typical teenage stuff.
but
But deep
so
down,
like
he's still an honest to God good person because he's still following his like older sister philosophy, and also because his dad is a cop, one of the last good ones. His mother's a nurse, and he's got the cute little peppy younger sibling sister.
and like we mentioned before, he has a good support staff and his best friend since childhood and the brain trust of his group, who's basically Richie from Static Shock. Well, now that I think about it.
Yes, but yeah. So as the support group being his best friend Cammy Dawn, and his new friend that he meets from day one. Although back then he was kind of a latecomer because I felt, oh god, I need a Brainiac for my crew. But like with my recent run Redux, which is essentially retelling my older stories, because looking back, they still had like heart put into them, but these were clearly made quickly on the fly. Like these are stories that were definitely made like in like 2.5 hours and then just put up. So essentially, I decided to go back and like kind of give them a little bit of a flesh out, a nice little makeover, a little bit more exploring the superhero ethos, because essentially at the end of the day, the goal has changed from, oh, I wanted to make this like new like edgy take on superheroes, to essentially, you know what, superheroes have already gotten like a dark edgy kind of thing. I want to come back to like the good clean, colorful, bright, like hopeful thing, because essentially when he debuts in his first stories, the entire world around him is essentially like, oh my god, there's a superhero of all things. He's a real life superhero. Like that's like the coolest shit you can actually learn to see or experience. Like it's like a huge social media explosion. Of course,
the Superman exists.
Yeah, the
Superman exists, and he's American.
But yeah, I was just gotten sick and tired of like, oh no, there's a superpower being, oh we got a fear, and it's like, oh he's doing like these like vigilante things, and like, but I do understand that's kind of a trope that does lead to like some storytelling. So it's okay, so I'll have like the big city cops being like a little bit standoffish and like seeing him as a vigilante, but like the smaller like hometown cops that his dad runs around is like seeing this as like, well, he's actually helping things turn around for the better, and he's actually, you know, helping people and actually letting us get to the bad guys like before anyone else gets hurt. So
yes, like Commissioner Loeb thinks they're dangerous. What do you think? I think you're trying to help.
yeah, it's essentially like that. And I also did want to kind of like bridge like alien sci-fi with fantasy mysticism, because like obviously the comic books are able to pull that off, but in a lot of recent times, like especially with like the cartoon superheroes, it's like, okay, you gotta choose one thing. You gotta be mysticism or it's space aliens. You can't have it both ways. Which sadly happened with the likes of Ben 10. It's like, oh no, you can have your aliens, but like wizards and warlocks, nah, you gotta explain those away as aliens.
Yeah, that was the biggest turnoff when I found out, like, oh, so she's not actually using magic. It's just, oh, this is part of your alien DNA from way back when. Like, wait, what? Oh, that's another trope of heroes. The retcon that tries to explain something that sometimes sounds infinitely more stupider when you look at the retcon and say, you got to retcon the retcon sometimes.
Yeah, so
Which
no,
stands
but
for
yeah, but yeah, no, coming up with the superhero of my own creation was actually kind of fun. Although I do admit, like the one feature I could never get around, especially now, is coming up with costume designs. Like I just couldn't like wrap my head around. It's like, okay, I got this is a guy that was chosen to control like darkness across the universe. It's like, what the hell is he gonna look like? What, and essentially it's just um he gets his whole body gets a dark makeover where he gets like a second coating of skin that's shielding him essentially, that gives him like a gray outlook. His hair gets longer and jet black and has like kind of like a half moon crescent shape when you look at it from silhouette from the side. And his color scheme is essentially like royal blue jacket and like a black shirt and dark blue pants and gray shoes and belt essentially, and also a marking of the shadow element on his back.
yeah, that's so yeah. So he doesn't quite have a super suit per se, and like you say, that's also another hard part of any hero is coming up with the design. If I could
Although
break in,
it was kind of creating it with like it was kind of based on how I grew up when I had hood jackets. I was always crazy for hood jackets because I thought they were like the all-in-one like outfit type
well,
to
yeah, yeah,
wear, and
everybody,
especially when I was like a young kid, such especially back then, like I had to make a huge run from my house to the bus stop, and whenever I run the jacket when I didn't have it zipped would always like flutter about like it was a cape almost when you think about it. It's
oh,
like, oh, well, why don't I just make like the jacket be like his cape or cloak essentially? So whenever he does power up, it does kind of like lengthen out. So it's not like it's essentially oh he gets a color coat difference. No, I like recent times I do kind of like tweak it a little bit to give it like a little bit more of a superhero flair, and it kind of works out when you, especially when I draw it like look like it's flapping in the wind.
yeah. One thing that when I was writing for, 'cause every now and then I would take my attempt at the character. One thing that was a ability in the old version was that he would to actually turn the shadow into an inky substance that can, be adhesive. So he would use that to grab like a piece of debris and kind of twirl himself around and swing it around. So I imagine a lot of his combat to be very. Oh, another thing that was
Oh, that's
established in
actually
the.
cool. I really need to make a note of that. That's actually because I essentially just wrote him just like pulling it off like he's like Spider-Man. It's like just like on the fly, instinctual. But no, I'm marking that down.
Yeah, like that. It's yeah, like the idea is that yeah, basically it's his own shadow aura, but he would like extend it and it would come out like a longer hand or like a longer little like tendril, and he would use that to pull something or yeah. So it's kind of like Spider-Man, so to say, but it's without being a metal chain like Spawn. But uh, I always imagined his style to be very acrobatic, very like a parkour was the rage at the time, and he admitted he stuck in some parkour into like the way he would locomote himself.
Yeah, that's essentially because like back in the day, I made him like fly a little bit because he had energy and such. But I decided when I was going to restart writing this, I decided, okay, no, he has to earn the flying. So throughout the entire first season, he is not able to fly. He is able to make like long, huge leaps and bursts and all that, and use parkour momentum to get around, or even. Um, Actually, no, I actually did make the sticky substance as a thing because he actually creates like essentially quote unquote webs to swing around. Because like if you're not able to fly, the best way to travel as a superhero is literally to swing around.
Batman has a grapple gun, so yeah.
Or Spidey has a web.
Yeah. And Venom has his web, but they come out the top of his hand instead of the bottom. So anyway, um, yeah. So yeah, he's given a lot of thought to this. This is almost a hero that's been 10 plus years in the making, but it's only like a lot of things, a lot of stuff goes through his head, but only a few stuff actually comes out. Given real life stuff and stuff. But for the most part, it's pretty. You could put a lot of thought into this, and as a friend, I'm not just saying that as your best friend, but as an outside watcher and a fellow writer, I can't say this. There is a lot of deep lore that goes into this.
Yeah, and it's only going to expand. And I honestly can't wait to go back and redo my other superhero idea. It's just a team of superhero kids. Because
The
I
Power
honestly,
Kids.
yeah, with a Z at the end, because that means that they mean business.
As to borrow another Tata Farfall joke, because poor literacy is cool.
Yeah.
But yeah,
but but yeah, the Power Kids was essentially my take on like wanting superheroes that's literally for all ages, essentially, because that's literally what I grew up essentially like the original Ben 10, Powerpuff Girls and such. It's like these are like bright, hopeful like superheroes who like fight like weird, bizarre monsters that come from like out of nowhere,
and,
essentially. So
and he made it a point not to have him face very dangerous threats like terrorism or bodily harm. It would be like, watch out for that monster, or the space rock is causing this problem. It was something that's a little
like
more.
it's a little more like out of this world kind of thing, like imaginative, like kid essentially. Although, that they might fight those when they grow up a little bit, but like at the HCR, I just don't feel comfortable like writing. Oh, and this superhero kid has to dodge bullets from this like bank robber that's on the edge. It's like no,
No.
there's no way I'm gonna pull this off without like really just.
Anyway,
I mean I could pull like the whole like 90s cartoon sticks where they replace guns with laser weapons, but I don't know.
I know, but yeah. So yeah, but you would look on the surface. It's nice that you mentioned the influences because someone would look on the surface and say, "Oh, you're doing Fantastic Four," and reality, you're doing no. Actually, this is more like the Ben 10 origin, but
Well,
stuff
that's
like that.
actually a little bit more closely on the sleeve. It's these are essentially my take on the Power Pack. Although
Yeah,
in this case, there's actually 5 of them instead of 4.
and two siblings, two friends, and a gamut of powers.
Yeah.
But
Whereas in
yes.
mine, it's really a pair of siblings and three strangers. One of which has a relative that uh, helps them learn about their whole powers and all that stuff.
Haley. I don't
And
know.
Grandpa Vern also. It's I'm gonna have fun revisiting these guys.
And Grandpa Vern, he's essentially kind of like Doc Brown. If I had to give it an approximation for if people had to get a view of him,
Think Doc Brown and also Uncle Chuck from Sonic X.
and maybe a bit of Grandpa Max thrown in there for good measure.
Yep, definitely. It's a nail right in the head.
Yeah. So yes, do I know you or do I know you? So it's funny that we mentioned the heroes he's made because believe it or not, he himself had actually inspired me to make a couple of concepts, some of them that actually have gone farther than others. And one of them, I will tell you right now, started because there was a comic book event going on locally, and they wanted to like create a superhero in 48 hours type thing. And I came up with this idea of, of, of a character that was a monkey girl. Like there's a few things that go back to this. Obviously, as a kaiju fan, one of my first kaiju wasn't actually the big G. I know sacrilege, but actually his Western contemporary was going to be punching him in the face this March.
Yeah, King Kong.
Yeah, and Derek had to point this out to me. He wasn't surprised that I was a little sympathetic to Kong at times, more than so other, even though I'm a lifelong Godzilla fan. And he says, "Well, you always been the monkey guy." Like, really? I never thought about that, uh, but yeah. So, and also another reason that I went with the Monkey Girls because, well, back in the day there was this reality TV show called "Do You Want to Be a Superhero?" with Stan Lee as the host, and one that stuck out to me was this person tried to go for like a monkey-esque aesthetic and everything like that, like wearing like almost like a Sheena, the Jungle Queen type look, and that was she would go up the trees and try to change into her hero outfit, but it was like that cost her points. But yeah, that was kind of stuck with me, so that ended up being the inspiration for making this. And I went two routes with how the origin happened because the first route was lab accident. The go on a field trip. There's this doohickey. This poor lab monkey is about to be vaporized or whatever, so she wants to save it, and she ends up putting herself between harm's way and ends up getting infused with some monkey genes and is able to take on some simian features afterwards. Like she can make a tail sprout, prehensile tail sprout, so she can hang from stuff. Get the whole prehensile limbs on the feet type thing, so she can like more locomotion. And sometimes it manifests itself in like hairier limbs or like slightly protruded facial features. But for the most part, that was the idea that she would take this accident and not let it cripple her, but actually make it become a heroic source. And another origin happened that she got it from an ancient scribe because another inspiration was Wukong, the Monkey King, Son Goku, the reason why Kakarot is the way he is.
Yeah,
Eh,
and ultimately he wanted to go for the sci-fi means, and at a point I decided, okay, well, why don't you have the sci-fi aspect, but she builds her identity off of legends she hears off of from like a friendly storefront that she always often visits.
and that's what ends up creating the her persona as the Monkey Girl. I call her Monkey Queen initially because of the Monkey King, but I thought Monkey Girl would be great because Monkey Queen sounds a little grandiose unless she gets to a point where she is respected enough to be referred to as such. So I think for now it'll be the Monkey Girl. And yeah, and the idea for her was I made her just because I wanted to. Like Derek, I was at a point where grimdark superheroes were all the rage, and I'm thinking I want to bring some sunshine into this. Like for example, her outfit is brightly colored. Like she has a yellow top with the monkey symbol on it, and green cargo pants to not only carry phones and stuff, but also like little doohickeys that would help her with stuff.
And also,
So
she would also have a bow staff that was thematically themed to, well, her like monkey lineage. But of course, we decided to drop that, didn't we?
no, she has the bow staff still, and
Well,
also
yeah, but with the whole monkey queen aspect. So
no, yeah, she's still gonna keep that because that's part of the iconography. Because Sung Mina is a bow staff user, and that's my favorite fighter in Soul Calibur. That's kind of what I was thrown in there, and also she uses it for locomotion. She pole vaults with the staff.
yeah, that's actually cool.
Like
But that's not the only hero concept you thought up of, if I remember correctly.
yeah, recently I came up with another one that came from work. I wanted to try to create a Latinx based hero since that would be more of my lineage. So I thought I'd just make one, and I decided I haven't come up with the full story yet, but the name would be Soliana, and that her powers come from the sun, essentially like radiance and all that stuff. So Captain Marvel, Supermanish esque maybe, and I did do a trope with her that Derek kind of laughed at, saying it almost feels like I made her a cheerleader as the base for her outfit that she would make later, and he would go, "What's with cheerleaders saving the world when you think about it?"
Like Buffy, Kim Possible, that one girl from the CBS Heroes show, or no, it's NBC, not CBS.
And yeah, so that ended up being a thing. So that's still being fleshed out, but I thought that would exist alongside the other stuff I
Now you
made.
also had that other idea about being a mom being a superhero.
Oh yes, yes, Lunar Moth. Now that
Yep.
one came because of a contest. There was a contest. Most of these come in contests. I realized, dang it, but there was a contest, and in that one, I say to make an unassuming house mom who looks after her daughter at school, ends up being enchanted by a mystical moth who needs a successor for something, and she ends up becoming a sort of humanoid bug. But think less Jeff Goldblum to fly, and more like the Luminoth from Metroid.
Yeah,
Is
let's
that
go with that.
I don't know. Yeah, how would you describe Luna Moth?
Um, it, um, no, it's essentially what you described, but
Yeah,
obviously you still retain her human features, and also the faceted eyes are actually kind of almost like a second layer, almost. You
like
treat them like
goggles.
goggles essentially, which that was actually kind of cool.
Yeah, and that one was just a one-off, but it was a very funny idea that her daughter would look up to the superhero and have no idea the superhero is also mom. And first, it was just to protect her daughter because her daughter was injured, but she thought, hey, I could use this to help people. So she would save falling construction workers and help cats. She would do superheroing stuff, but it would be like uh, she would do that. It started off from a small personal thing and ended up becoming a big thing where she was using her power responsibility and improving the community wherever she can. That's the same deal with Sarah. Sarah gets her accident and decides to use it to fight crime, where it be small petty things, or fighting the occasional rampaging mutant, and do it just because she wants to. And I think that's the core thing that all these things share in common. Superman, Batman, My Hero, Dark Neon, all of them is that uh, they have that heroic streak in them, that selflessness, that willingness to act even when your mind is telling you run away. They run towards. Like I think My Hero was the best personification of that in the most recent thing I've seen.
Yeah, but no, creating your own superheroes, like it's literally like almost kind of growing beyond a hobby. I feel, because like you're literally creating your own lore and mythos for like these extraordinary people that can actually give you like instantly hope. Like especially when I was creating my own superhero, like a lot of my friends decided were reading up to these. It's like, huh, I can actually create a hero myself. Like I had one guy creating a girl that was like half human, half demon. So think Hellboy, but it's a girl. Essentially, eventually he left that idea to me. Or even our friend Megan uh, has created like different hero concepts at a lot of points. I think she's sticking with it that it's like a emotional thing for its
Uh,
mental.
Elemental, yeah. Her
Yeah,
name is
so
Ellie, so yeah.
yeah, yes. Think of a magical girl, but she like uh different spectrums of elements like come from different
Personalities.
aspects of mental personalities, or even my closest living friend Casey or Cartoon 12 has her own webcomic, Jamie Jupiter, and she's just been an absolute like cheerleader for his side, essentially because like I'm still trying to like getting my wings essentially, but she's always been there rooting for me since day one, and hopefully we can like put a link down for her channel, and because she also does top lists for like superheroes, because she's been a fan of superheroes and cartoons and such. But also leave a link to her webcomic,
Yeah,
essentially, if that would be all right.
so she's essentially your real life Cammy.
Well, um, hmm, I guess in a way you could
I guess
think
that like
that.
that probably makes me your Riley.
Well, are you super intelligent or have like access to a swath of money?
Are you familiar with the oh damn it, I was gonna spoiler for a show you probably already watched right now, and I'm not even gonna get into it. The Ship of Theseus. Those who know. Anyway, but yeah, so yeah, I'll be sure to put those links in there. So this has kind of gone on for a while, but like I said, we didn't cover everything. This was more of a generalization, but it was more to talk about how long the heroes have been around, how they influence us, and how they inspire us to try to do things. Maybe seeing Superman uh, save people from a burning building inspires us to think, well, maybe I can be a firefighter. Or maybe seeing Batman use his smarts to figure out an unstoppable riddle makes us think maybe I should apply myself more like Batman. Stuff like that.
Or even just like being interested in heroes themselves makes us feel okay. Maybe I should create like a character that's like close to like from my upbringing or my own weaknesses or fallings, and like turn into a positive and hopefully inspire others to follow that too. Essentially,
Yeah. And that's probably the reason why we keep coming back to heroes is that, it's not just the escapist fantasy aspect. It's just that sometimes they're who we want to be or they are who we are, and we thought that'd be great to see someone else think that and affirm that. So sometimes it's just fun. Sometimes it's just silly fun, but other times it can be really life affirming. Like there's some people who still read Superman comics, and one of their most famous favorite images is the one of a leaper ready to go off the ledge, and Superman's just there to. He doesn't save her from falling. He just kind of just stands there and gives her a supportive hug, and that keeps her from taking that next step over the edge.
your therapist was coming late. He does care about
But
you.
yeah, and that's what we like to think. Yeah, sometimes it is cool to see the hero come up and punch a personification of evil in the face. We do get our kicks out of seeing Captain America punch Adolf Hitler in the face, or Superman bring down this almost impossible god figure in Darkseid. Like when you see stuff like that, that makes you feel like, yeah, that's cathartic, because sometimes life is full of big, tall evils that feel almost unbeatable, but then you have that one person come in and stand to evil and say no, and try to fight back with all their might. Like I think in Crisis on Infinite Earth, one of the most controversial things is the fact that some heroes don't make it out of it, and one of the more famous deaths is Supergirl taking on the Anti-Monitor.
Oh yeah, she literally goes to town on that guy, and like just one small fraction of a second like took her life, but she did enough damage that like the villain had to go like away to regroup, and uh,
So
uh yeah.
that's what we like. Yeah, and that's a character depth that mattered, and eventually these depths get retcon. But that's one that matters because, Okay, that's a trope I'll say right now that does bug us sometimes is in these events. Is sometimes you get the senseless death where we just gotta kill someone for shock's value.
And then of course there's the big headliner death, like a certain Man of Steel who had his death. Which, by the way, when that death happened, there's no other news going on. So literally, the biggest news that was going on that day was Superman has been slain.
Like it was like real life, almost like like in real life we lost Superman. Like what? But yeah, so superhero deaths. That's kind of a joke in that sometimes it feels like that's a revolving door for these things. But I mean, that no creative team is going to actually kill off the character to say we're going to stop making money off this thing. We'll say we'll put him away for a little bit, make everybody mourn for them, miss him, and then we'll bring him back. So that's kind of become almost a running gag at this point. Where and I'm not advocating for perma deaths, but uh, when you have the heroes treat death like I think the best way to sum it up is Batman's rant in Robot Chicken.
No, I forgot how that one, but I know.
No, but yeah, look it up.
About.
Yeah, look it up. When he's at Green Arrow's funeral after he dies in an earlier skit, and he starts getting pissed off. Like, oh come on, how many times have any of us died? Come on, raise your hand. And he says, I'm. And yeah, it was a pretty funny rant. But like, yeah, sometimes it feels like death is a revolving door for any of the people who are heroic. And I'm not saying that it's cheapens the thing, but sacrificial moments only really count when you feel it. Like I said, like Supergirl's final stand against the Anti-Monitor, or Barry's last minute effort to stop the Anti-Monitor's the ultimate weapon at the cost of his life, but he does it without thinking of the danger to him. He's just thinking about running fast enough to save everybody, and that's very admirable. And he stayed dead in the comics for a while, actually.
Or even to modern day where we have stuff like Into the Spider-Verse had Miles Spider-Man in his universe die a horrible way, just try to stop the universe from imploding, or even spoilers, a big MCU death of Tony Stark sacrificing himself to stop Thanos from wiping out the entire universe again.
But yeah, so those are the ones that I think matter. But when you start doing them frequently, like some of the events feel like piecemeal slaughter, like Future's End. Oh man, I saw the review on that one recently and went, whoa, just.
or God forbid, Countdown to Final Crisis. Oh, sweet God, the amount of death in that one.
Or Marvel Ultimate's one of its few missteps, Ultimatum.
Oh no. Oh God. I still see Blob chewing on
yeah.
Wasp a cannibalistic fashion. Oh God.
And then Giant Man makes short work of him, and I'm going, did we really need all that? But yeah, so we don't like gratuitous death for nonsense thing because, as we all know in real life, death is pretty reversible. And when comic books treat it like a lackadaisical thing, it's like, oh, okay.
It's either like, oh, we'll find someone from an alternate dimension, or oh, there's this mystical element, or oh, no, actually, we are kind of, oh, it's not this version of the hero that died. It's actually like a clone that replaced him for a bit, but the actual guy is still here and he's got all the memories back.
Oh no, I've gone cross-eyed. But yeah, okay. And another trope that we mentioned earlier that gets annoying when it's misused is the good guy turning bad for the stupidest of reasons.
Like how you've already known my disdain of like the Superman having the oh no, Superman is evil because he's super powerful and he's not relatable as a human being at all, and obviously he's has all these powers and blah blah blah. It's like, oh my God, shut up.
Yeah. If you want to see an evil Superman who's a jerk because of his upbringing and everything, just look at Brightburn or look at Homelander.
Or The Boys, or like literally any other dozens of like super beings that got powers.
Yeah. So there's.
You know what? I got all this stuff. Why do I have to be a burden on helping people? Why can't they just help me instead?
Yeah. But yeah, The Boys is a good deconstruction of the commercialism of heroism and stuff. But yeah, so it's also pretty funny. Like there's some jokes that you go, okay, like that's messed up, but that's funny. So Yeah, people recommend The Boys, and I have access to it. I still haven't seen all of it, but yeah. But yeah, so he's tired of the Superman evil just because he's evil. Like, yet you never see anyone ask, what if Batman flipped the lid? Because usually when Batman flips the lid, it's mostly people going, oh, he's finally doing what needs to be done. And I'm going, it's double standard. It's not okay for Superman, but it's okay for Batman.
Or sometimes they do it really bad, like Catwoman, Guardian of Gotham.
Oh my goodness. Oh yeah, but that's another thing I think that uh, Derek doesn't take too kindly to is overexposure on one type. Like if only that particular character exists, and in this case it's Batman sometimes because he kind of got batted out.
Like it's okay. So, um, I know this is like probably a topic that he doesn't want me to bring up, but there is this like poll for IGN about like these great movies, and of course, one poll asks which one's like better of the two, Batman Returns or the original Superman movie. And of course, looking at it, it's like it's a goddamn landslide that Batman Returns wins. And I'm sitting here thinking, no, no way in hell would like the first true superhero movie that literally started this whole franchise thing be beaten out by Tim Burton's Wet Dream.
And we're not saying that Batman Returns is a bad movie, far from it, but I think that Batman thing would make more sense if it was like one of the universally applauded ones, like Dark Knight or Batman Begins. That would make a little more sense. But
Or
Superman,
if it was the first Batman movie, like I would kind of hesitate to go, this would be a tough one. Which one should I go for? Not Batman Returns, for God's sake. That would literally be like saying, oh, we're going to choose Batman Robin over Superman 3 because, well, Batman Robin sucks, but it's still Batman.
yeah,
It's like,
but
Jesus,
yeah, so
guys.
yeah, that's one little peeve of his. But don't get him wrong, he still loves the Bat family and Batman. It's just sometimes it feels like comic book companies only focus on one fellow over the other, and it kind of feels a little unfair. Like I think Marvel almost fell into that with.
Superman was literally the guy that built the DC house for them.
Oh, I know another one where that happened, but you're not quite as annoyed at this character, but it did happen to him was Wolverine over Cyclops.
Oh boy.
But
So, yeah,
but it
that
wasn't
was
as
just mostly a movie thing. But it's like, oh, this guy only has this one gimmick, whereas the other guy can heal himself, has super strong knives. It, he's a total badass.
so I think what Derek's getting at is that he doesn't like too much favoritism. He's like, yes, we understand these heroes are cool, but you literally have this whole pantheon of guys with different abilities and stuff. Let's see them. Like you got this Japanese girl who can make psionic armor around herself. You got this you got this girl who can walk through walls. You got this guy who can, like summon like the power of the sun from his internally from his body. So let's see a little more on them.
Exactly. Like DC's just not just a one note thing, despite how often they will make like multiple books just based on this one asshole.
But yeah,
Like you thought the Spider-Man overexposure was bad. Like that was four comics for one guy. Like let's jump to like a few years, just a couple years back, where Batman literally had almost 10 books
wow,
dedicated to him and his lore.
yeah, yeah. So I know you have another trope that does bug you in comics that you're like, yeah, just no. That you try to avoid in your stuff, right? Hmm.
Oh boy, which one is it? I'm blanking right now.
Well, let's see. We don't like excessive death. We don't like villain. Like you said, heroes turning into villains can be done right. Like there's some like
Yeah,
Sinestro, yeah. I know we have a good example of that where it, like there's good reasons for bad guys. Like shoot. I remember there was one I really liked. Well, this ain't a superhero per se, but he's a superhero in his universe. But Darth Vader.
uh,
Yeah,
sure.
started off as such a genuinely good person, but things out of his control made him go toward a path that was darker. But yeah. So it is possible to do the hero gone bad right, but sometimes you make it really stupid and you have to go back and apologize for it. Like when Green Lantern turned into Parallax, and they were super committed to it till they realized, oh shit, people are really mad about this. Let's just say he was possessed.
Yeah, or um, actually no, the Jason Todd thing was a good concept at first, and then they realized, oh well, I guess we're already done with that concept. Want to make him an anti-hero?
Yeah. So, okay, there was something else I wanted to bring up. Right now, superheroes. We've been hearing years and years and years about superhero fatigue being a thing. Frankly, I haven't quite felt it or seen it, to be honest.
Yeah. Funny thing, I there's this HBO Max show that I watched called Close Enough. It's the same guy that did a regular show, and they made a joke that one guy says to like a computer program, okay, it's your thing, but essentially he says he's asking a computer program to say, "Hey, superhero movies are derailing killing the art of cinema. Change my mind." And the computer system says, actually, superhero mediums are a continuing trope of a popularity that dates all the way back to Greek mythology, and and even the fact that the uh, the successes from said superhero films would actually help springboard for cast and crew to take on projects that nobody else would ever think to embrace in, which honestly does actually matter, considering that cut things like uh, Patty Jenkins getting a chance to do a Star Wars film, mostly because her Wonder Woman film worked out pretty well.
Or Christopher Nolan being able to direct crazy films like Inception, Tenet, and Interstellar, thanks to making really good Batman movies.
Yeah, so it is superhero fatigue actually a thing? Like,
Maybe.
obviously not a, not even close. Goodness sakes, have you seen like everyone like raving over like WandaVision?
Yeah, so that's another thing is that streaming has now opened a whole new avenue for superheroes. I mean, right now there were some growing pains. For example, DC tried to branch out into their own miniature service, and that service ended up getting absorbed into HBO Max when that service was bleeding subscribers. But that has like the whole back catalog of like superhero movies and shows, so you can read up on them. Like Teen Titans is on there, stuff like that. And also, you have the options for original projects, like streaming allowed for The Boys to be made. I think no one in their right mind would put The Boys on movie screens, but at streaming home, they're allowed to go as hardcore as the material is with on that. So streaming is there, and hell,
Or
streaming
even
is like
HBO taking on their own concept watcher, which a lot of people were worried about, but it actually turned out, oh no, we're actually going to have our own original Watchmen ideas coming for this, which, like, I honestly applaud that they do that instead of just retelling the story over again with the same characters and all that.
yeah, it's sort of a pseudo sequel to the comic in a sort of way because there's some references, but for the most part, it's this own contained, interesting, take on springboarding on what Watchmen started. Oh, there's a joke when they run into a character in that show, like in one of the cold opens as a joke where it's like this Batman-esque fellow who's like, and they then when he gets like nearly killed and everything, the detective says just some rich asshole trying to play hero or something like that. And yeah, and hell, HBO Max is also giving a platform for projects that were thought to be too costly or ineffective, such as Zack Snyder's version of Justice League, which if anyone followed that, they knew that there was some production upheaval after personal tragedy, and the final movie came out was different than what was being developed, and people thought we'd never see that. Even though people insisted I saw another version, it's totally different. And now that HBO Max, funded this, and he was convinced to come back and finish his last project, we now have Zack Snyder's Justice League premiering within a week from now, so that's going to be curious. Whether it's good or bad remains to be seen. But hey, the fact that he was able to do this with such loving support from fans and from a service that's trying to like make this work, like so they can get more subscribers, that's interesting.
I do honestly feel like it's gonna work out because, like, from what little I've seen, I haven't seen like any recent trailers really, but like you could actually tell that there's actually like heart and effort put into this. It's not like a corporate cash grab like May would say that the other Justice League attempt was, but
I would be inclined to disagree on that note, but it's definitely more cohesive. It's definitely one unified vision because unfortunately, as much as I did enjoy that first one, it is a Frankenstein because you have the tone of the original direction with Seeds be there kind of clash with what was expected of hero movies at the time. So it's like it's kind of a clashing tones problem, but it is salvageable. It's a miracle that movie was able to work in the way it did. I mean, by comparison, it's going to be a complete failure next to the fact that this new version came out, but it still it made money and the people were able to make it work with the time frame they were given the circumstances. So it's like when Solo went through a complete overhaul after they had to drop the original directors and they had less than a few months to get it together, so they were able to race to the finish line. And that one, I think Solo worked out better than Justice League in the end. But yeah,
I'm just saying that like comparing Zack Snyder's theatrical versions versus his director's cuts and reaction from people for those ones, I think it's safe to bet that his version of things is going to be definitely a much more entertaining time.
yeah, I know it's 4 hours, but it is going to be told in 6 chapters, so you can take breaks at certain points. He said, I have a
Well,
video.
it is a big like undertaking. You're essentially like, okay, so like the original Justice League movie, let's just admit it. The plot is kind of rushed. It's like, okay, we have this huge threat, and obviously we're bringing this team together, but oh no, this team is not enough. Okay, we need to bring Superman back, but oh no, he's having a fit. We're gonna have a fight. Oh, but he's okay. So we'll just stop the bad guy from bringing about apocalypse and all that. And the end.
That's actually Zack Snyder's Justice League, just with more stuff in it. So, but yeah, although
Yeah,
this guy,
but but you have to realize that's literally in one go as a movie, not as a 4 hour project with a little bit more weight and gravitas. And also, you have to remember that there are characters being introduced in this movie that never didn't get their like Avengers build up like the MCU did.
well,
So
yeah,
they had to compress all of that. Like there's like the Victor Stone thing. There's also Flash's dad is in jail. Arthur Curry is like living out this like almost like I don't know what to
want
describe it. Like
nomadic
a
life.
wandering life, yeah, a nomadic life, yeah. And it's like and also I have to reintroduce like Batman and also Tussin. Oh, we have Commissioner Gordon here, and also like oh Wonder Woman's in Paris doing all this stuff, and she gets a call from her friend Batman. Like, okay, we're actually doing this. All right, let's do this.
Oh, also, this new version is adding characters that weren't supposed to be there in the first place, but Zack's mind evolved on it, like the return of Jared Leto's Joker after a frosty reception in Suicide Squad.
Yeah, or like
Joe Manganiello's Deathstroke, which people might remember him as Flash Thompson from the Raimi films.
well, I was also gonna point out Iris West for the Flash, I think, or
One
was it
one
someone else?
scene, one scene,
Well,
just one scene, but yeah.
but
But
yeah.
oh, we're also getting Desaad and Darkseid and Granny Goodness in background shots. But yeah, it's a little
But
more.
no,
What?
I'm honestly got excited to see this. Just I
Good thing you got a day
like
off to spend 4 hours on it.
yeah. Sorry, you'll have to wait for that one.
Yeah, but we might end up doing just a special episode just for that down the line.
I honestly can't wait for that.
Yeah, but
So
yeah. So anyway, let's go ahead and give some closing thoughts about heroism and why superheroes are endured, and I'll let you take the floor on that one.
okay, so in the end, I do really love superheroes because it's literally seeing this lifestyle that's always full of like adventure and excitement, like every other day. Like you don't know what you're gonna expect. Like maybe one day you're gonna have a portal from another dimension open up, or you're going to have like magical hijinks ensue, or a bank robbery that unearths like this slumbering giant that's gonna stomp through a city, or like even an alien invasion that you have to team up with some friends to stop, and it's just like it it's the type of escapism I want, because I feel like the day to day life for like most people is almost kind of like um the same every single day, and at a point you get stop go like isn't there a little bit more to enjoy life? And I'm not saying you're not able to find a way to like get excitement out of it, but I feel like that's literally like the ultimate fantasy. I feel it's like getting like a different adventure, a different flavor of adventure every other day, and knowing that you're actually like getting a chance to do good for people. Because like in this day and age, like the best feeling you can get is like doing good for others, and especially in a place I work, I do at some points give a little bit more of an effort to help like those that are struggling, and it's honestly a good feeling when they like give me thanks in advance and all that, and it's honestly a really good feeling. Especially I don't care for the whole deconstructing thing. Like, cool, that was a great phase to have, but like I feel like we really need to have like superheroes get back to like the good old fashioned sense of like doing good where they can, when they can, or however they can.
Well said, well said. I'm also of the same mindset that I like them because they're very colorful characters with exuberant personalities, and some of them you could really relate to, like in Teen Titans. I think if I would just compare myself to anybody in that group, I'm probably a bit like Starfire or Beast Boy, and it's fun to see that. But at the same time, you're right, that they inspire you. Like when I was watching My Hero with you, and All Might was talking to Midoriya about how seeing him run in the face of danger was inspiring to a big guy like him. That makes me think, wow. And I too come in a place where I'm working in service of people, and you're right, it does feel good to give people the benefit of the doubt and help them, and then they give you, like, it doesn't matter your background or what place you're from or what your views are. When when we help each other, we end up connecting on that part, and it makes there's harmony and peace for those moments. So, and heroes do that on a grander scale in their world, whether it be by stopping a tornado or punching away a slime ball or catching a
Or
meteor.
literally or literally just like getting people excited for them, like just for being around. Especially like in real day where we have like comic conventions where everyone is dressing up as them or drawing like wonderful, amazing art projects or creating their own concepts that's based on them, or just like celebrating heroes that like people that took up the mantle of heroes in the past, uh, coming in and seeing all these people that have changed their lives because of that, and it's honestly like a transformative feeling when you think about it.
Yeah. So I guess you could say the world does need it, even though we think we might grow tired of it. There'll be dip ups and downs. It's like a roller coaster, but I think in the end, the hero will always, come up, right?
It's essentially like how Overwatch says, the world could always use a few more heroes.
Heroes never die. Yeah. All right.
So
So that was
uh,
your.
we thank you all for taking the time to listen. Uh, Please go ahead and visit the links down below. There, especially for my friend, she would really appreciate it very much. Uh, if you feel inspired to create your own heroes, go for it. It's literally, there's no better feeling than like creating something that you, they might not change like the mythos in any big way, but it'll definitely be like a step in a creative direction for you, especially.
So yeah. Yeah. So I want to thank you for picking this topic, man. I can see it was very near and dear to your heart, and even now, funny thing is, we actually recorded a version of this last November, and uh, thanks to audio issues, we decided to re-record it. But also, uh, I just felt like we needed a redo on that one, and this was probably the right decision to take.
Oh yes, definitely. And um, no, yeah, this was a great chance to springboard and come back after last year.
Oh,
Especially with new tech that we tested out. Everything's up and running. We're definitely on the right path to actually really starting a really ambitious projects down the line.
Oh yeah. Also, for those of you who listen to my other stuff, I am planning for a formal full return of the high ground, and as we all know from recent Star Wars stuff, Star Wars is still going strong. So we're gonna have plenty of stuff to talk about when I launch that again.
Yep, and tune in next time for Rambling Ballers, where we decide to take up a topic that we did bring up earlier in the video game realm when we fight and defend the realms of Earthrealm from the oncoming threat of
Outworld
demons and monsters and outworlds. Oh my!
Yeah, it has begun. Coming next time when we talk about Mortal Kombat. That was my pick.
Mortal Kombat!
Yeah. All right. So once again, leave your thoughts here if you have any thoughts. Thank you for listening this far if you got this far. And, until next time, true believers.
Excelsior!
Yeah, to finish it that way. So catch you next time.
Bye-bye.
When they say that a hero can save us, I'm not gonna stand here